Hollywood tells us at least 3 lies. 1, we are taught that God sounds like Morgan Freeman or James Earl Jones. I don't know who you're talking to. God sounds like Samuel L. Jackson. 2, when it comes to romantic comedies, we are trained to imagine ourselves as one of the protagonists. But in life, you are as likely to be the main character as you are to be the scene-stealing best friend. But the most realistic relationship in the entire movie is the one at the beginning, where someone gets dumped. But finally, the worst lie is the montage. Sergei Eisenstein, the pioneer of the montage, realized that the brain imposes a story on a succession of even random images. So you can suggest a story by a series of narrative highlights. As the creators of South Park remind us, in anything, if you want to go from just a beginner to a pro, you need a montage. Show a lot of things happening at once. Remind everyone of what's going on. What's going on? But with every shot, show a little improvement, because to show it all would take too long. That's called a montage. The training montage, the battle preparation montage, that series of romantic gestures by which the protagonist finally gets his act together to win someone's heart in the day, they're all montages. And they're all lies. Because they stylishly present only the highlights to suggest the days, weeks, months, years it takes to change. I wrote in this week's newsletter about the Ascension, celebrated on Thursday, which we hear again in the reading from Acts today. As a child fascinated by the planets and stars, I always wondered, if he's ascending, where does he go? I mean, I understand rising into the air and then disappearing from sight, but we all know what's up there. Thinning atmosphere and then outer space. So either he disappeared somewhere in the stratosphere, or something else is going on. These days, I imagine the Ascension as more of a going forward than a going up. A moving not through space, but time. Jesus speaks in another gospel of going and preparing a place for us. The letter to the Hebrews speaks of Jesus as a pioneer. Jesus doesn't move in space, but time. He goes ahead to the future to prepare a place for us. And from there, he calls us to follow him to higher and better ground, to justice, peace, and love. He ascends to a new future for us, to the promised land, that heavenly country, and our true home. And that future, I want to tell you today, takes more than a montage. Montage thinking plagues our country and our churches. Downtown, they're celebrating Rededicate 2050, a national jubilee of prayer, praise, and thanksgiving. Which, given my enthusiasm for the American Revolution, sounds awesome. I don't know exactly what to expect from the event, but apparently it has 3 pillars. The miracles that made us, a reflection on God's providence throughout 250 years, honoring the faith that inspired the founders and has carried us forward in every generation since. Pillar number 2 is the miracles still in our midst, personal testimonies of God's healing in our lives and in our land. And pillar 3, a new birth of faith and freedom, a collective expression of gratitude for 250 years of freedom and a unified moment of rededication, asking for God's blessing, guidance, and grace for the next 250. That sounds beautiful. And I have high hopes for the day. But all of them, are montages. In each, there's just a succession of images, the founders, the miracles and testimonies of our time, and then a collective expression of gratitude. They're scenes which we put together a narrative for. The miracles that made us, never mind the many founders who were not particularly Christian in their beliefs or their actions. The Pilgrims of Plymouth Rock were Puritans. They didn't come to these shores for religious freedom. They came for the right to impose their religion on others. Unable to do that in their native England and not able to make a living in the Netherlands, they came to these shores where they murdered alleged witches, killed indigenous people, and trafficked in human lives. I'm not saying that wasn't something beautiful in their search for a place for their faith. It's just what the montage misses that bothers me. The miracles in our midst. The problem is not that what we're seeing is un-American in our country. The problem is not that what we're seeing is un-American. The problem is that what we're seeing is too often precisely what it has meant to be an American. What we're seeing is as American as an underemployed alcoholic apple pie, Bible beating its mail-order bride with a baseball bat to the tune of Stars and Stripes Forever because its sclerotic, uninsured heart couldn't manage the additional 10 feet of desecrated Indian burial ground required to grab the TV remote, much less its unregistered handgun.
No.
Okay.
Let me tell you how I really feel. And I say that because I love this country. A new birth of faith and freedom, I'd like to see it. I just don't see it the same way others do. I used to work in D.C. in a building whose lobby was all mirrors up to the elevator. And I could just hear my own conscience when I came back from lunch. Where'd you go, Kevin? You went to Fuddruckers down the block, didn't you? You ate another meat frisbee, and you wonder why you're gaining weight. Attacked by my conscience, I would race for the elevator. I hated those mirrors. And I'd love to hate Trump, but I can't. Whenever I see the ill-fitting suit, the tie tied too long, the bluster and the hair, I just see that guy in the mirror. The un-Christ-like greed and vanity and sloth and viciousness in our history and in us all. Even distorted funhouse mirrors are still mirrors. America has always been at its best, not when it tries to return to some imagined montage past, but when it struggles for the imagined future, when it fights for the world those who went before could only dream about. Christ ascended into the future and calls us in 1,000 individual steps that cannot be avoided or stylized by a montage home. Because this montage plagues our churches as well. Cue the montage of Jesus, a depoliticized, de-radicalized, dehumanized Jesus, in favor of a nice Jesus who never asks too much of those sure they're going to heaven, while tossing aside those we're sure are hellbound. Cue the montage of the Bible, a succession of glorious, famous patriarchs and kings, the idealized early church. The Bible is highlighted and proof texted to death, not examined, questioned, and wrestled with to find the life within. Cue the montage of our self-justifying individual and collective histories, which by removing the sin and the loss that we experience in this life, that we do in this life, there's no reason for Jesus to intervene. It's a montage. How do we combat this? At least two ways. First, by recovering the stories hidden by the montage and working backward from the future that we reimagine together. recovering the stories. Remember, our brains are primed for narrative, for story. And there are going to be stories that we latch onto, and for good reason. Hold them lightly so that there's space for the truth to get in. There is an arc of history which bends toward justice that we should celebrate. But we should mourn the 1,000 ways we failed along the way, so we can find within us the discipline to make that arc real. We recover the stories. We have nothing to fear from telling the truth to one another. America can be gracious and beautiful. You can love, you should love your country. But it doesn't take anything away from that to say it still has room to improve. It doesn't say anything that it couldn't have done wrong in the past. That it has things that need redeeming. And if we can't be honest about those stories, we can't do anything about them. We can't tell new stories. We can't fight for a dream without learning why our forebears dreamed it in the first place. And so we have to do the things that the montage leads. We work backward from the Ascension. We work backward from that future. America has always been at its best not when it tries to return to some imagined past, but when it struggles for the imagined future. Jesus doesn't move in space, he moves in time. He goes ahead to the future to prepare a place for us. And we work backward from that time and place to where we want to go. Not in some stylized montage of the highlights, but in the gritty reality of wrestling with people with whom we disagree, with a Bible that troubles us, and a God who wrestles with us. The letter from Peter says that we should humble ourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God. Cast all our anxiety on him. Don't project it on other people. Cast it on Jesus and discipline yourselves. Keep alert. Because evil is not in the enemy, or not only in the enemy. It's in every one of us. Like a roaring lion, your adversary, the devil, prowls around looking for someone to devour. Resist him. Steadfast in your faith, not becoming what you hate. For you know that your brothers and sisters in all the world are undergoing the same kinds of suffering. We don't share the imagined past. But we could share the future for our country and our church. Jesus prayed that we all might be one. You see, Hollywood tells lies, but so do we. God is not always on our side. We are not always the heroes. And in between the images that suggest life is the thing that is real life. Eternal, abundant life. This country, this church, and we have been missing. So rededicate to 50. Find the truth and hold it lightly so that the work of the future can be done. In between the images that suggest life is the icon that is life. Jesus Christ our Lord, whom this country, this church, and we have been missing.